Margaret Wilson had spent the last 7 years alone in a small white house at the edge of a quiet town in Ohio. Ever since her husband, Robert, passed away, the days had become painfully silent. The laughter that once filled their home had faded into memories. Their children had moved away years ago, busy with their own lives, and visits became less frequent with each passing year. Every morning, Margaret followed the same routine. She watered the flowers Robert had planted, sat on the porch with a cup of tea, and watched the world move on without her. The neighbors were friendly, but no one truly knew how lonely she felt. At 73 years old, she often wondered if life had anything new left to offer. One cold autumn afternoon, dark clouds gathered over the town. Margaret was knitting near the window when she heard a knock at the door. She wasn't expecting anyone. Curious, she slowly walked to the entrance and opened it. Standing on her porch was a young boy, no older than 12. His clothes were slightly worn, and his face showed signs of exhaustion. He looked nervous. "Ma'am," he said softly, "I'm sorry to bother you, but my bicycle broke down a few miles away. The storm is coming, and I don't know where else to go." Margaret hesitated for a moment. Her parents had always taught her to be cautious, but something in the boy's eyes reminded her of her grandson whom she hadn't seen in years. "Come inside before the rain starts," she said kindly. The boy smiled with relief. His name was Ethan. Margaret prepared a warm bowl of soup while the rain poured heavily outside. As they sat together, Ethan explained that he lived in a neighboring town and had been delivering newspapers after school to help his mother pay bills. Margaret listened carefully. For the first time in months, someone was sitting across from her at the dinner table. Hours passed as they talked. Ethan shared stories about school, his dreams of becoming an engineer, and the challenges his family faced. Margaret found herself laughing again, something she hadn't done in a very long time. When the storm finally stopped, Ethan stood up to leave. "Thank you for everything," he said. "Most people wouldn't have opened the door." Margaret smiled. "Most people wouldn't have knocked." Before leaving, Ethan promised to return someday to thank her properly. Margaret assumed it was simply something polite. People said. Weeks turned into months. Then one Saturday morning, another knock came. Margaret opened the door and found Ethan standing there with a toolbox. "My bike isn't broken this time," he said with a grin. He had come back. From that day forward, Ethan visited almost every weekend. He helped with yard work, repaired loose boards on the fence, and carried groceries into the house. In return, Margaret taught him how to cook, sew buttons, and appreciate the little things in life. Their friendship became something special. Neighbors often saw them sitting on the porch, talking for hours. People assumed they were related. In many ways, they were. One day, Ethan asked a question that caught Margaret by surprise. "Do you ever wish your family visited more often?" Margaret looked down. "Every day," Ethan nodded. "I think they probably miss you more than you realize." Those words stayed with her. Encouraged by Ethan, Margaret finally called her daughter after nearly 2 years of little contact. The conversation was emotional. Her daughter confessed that she had wanted to reconnect, but didn't know how. A few months later, Margaret's children and grandchildren gathered at her house for Thanksgiving. It was the happiest day she had experienced in years. The house was once again filled with laughter. As the family enjoyed dinner, Ethan quietly sat at the end of the table. Margaret raised her glass. "I want to thank someone," she said. Everyone turned toward her. A young man knocked on my door during a storm. I thought I was helping him, but the truth is, he helped me far more. Tears filled Ethan's eyes. Years passed. Ethan graduated from high school with honors and later earned a scholarship to study engineering. Throughout every milestone, Margaret remained one of his biggest supporters. When Ethan graduated from college, he invited Margaret to the ceremony. As he walked across the stage, he spotted her in the crowd. The elderly widow who had once believed her best days were behind her was smiling proudly. After the ceremony, Ethan handed her a small framed photograph of the two of them sitting on her porch years earlier. Written beneath the picture were simple words: "The day I knocked on your door, I was looking for shelter from a storm. I never expected to find family." Margaret hugged him tightly. Life had taught her an important lesson. Sometimes, the greatest blessings arrive unexpectedly. A single knock on a lonely afternoon can change two lives forever. And sometimes, the family we need most is the family we choose.